Hello, everyone, and welcome to AI Insights, the Executive Brief. I'm Ben's AI avatar, here to guide you through today's episode. Today, we have a special guest, Neil Cresswell, co-founder, CTO, and CEO of Portainer IO. Neil joins Ben Bowman himself to share his deep insights into containerization, Kubernetes, and how these tools are reshaping the landscape of IT and AI integration.
Right now, the thing that's really excited me is actually IoT and edge. We're doing a lot of work in the industrial IoT space and looking at the automations that can be implemented in factories to improve quality, improve efficiency, and overall generate a better product at a lower cost is absolutely phenomenal. And when you think about the world now as a global e-commerce layer, right? Look, lowest cost, highest quality is going to win always.
Neil has a fascinating career path that has taken him from hardware engineering to leading major virtualization projects and now to running Portainer, a company that simplifies and secures container management.
Yeah, I mean, at its heart, Kubernetes is an automation engine. So it makes it really quite simple to spin up an infrastructure platform that can dynamically provision AI workloads on GPUs and tear them down again. And
Yeah.
to do that without Kubernetes, you're talking about lots of manually created automation scripts.
He brings a wealth of knowledge from New Zealand to the global tech scene, and I'm excited to dive into his unique perspectives. So let's jump into the conversation. Hello, everyone, and welcome to AI Insights, the Executive Brief. I'm here with Neil Cresswell, who is the founder, CTO, and CEO of Portainer IO. Is that correct, Neil?
That's it. It's a
I got
mouthful, but yep, that's right.
I,
Co-founder though, co-founder.
okay, co-founder. Okay, co-founder. You definitely want to give credit where credit's due when you're in a co-founder situation.
We
So
do.
go ahead and give a more formal introduction of yourself and who you are and what you do with Portainer.
I like to de-emphasize how old I am, but I've had a relatively interesting career, being a hardware engineer and then a virtualization engineer with IBM, and I spent some time as a consultant, helping design and build large-scale VMware environments around the world. I have been a CTO, I've been a CIO, I've run a public cloud provider, and now I'm building and running Portainer. So
Hmm.
I like to say that my background has influenced very heavily my perceptions of how technology should be adopted and supported, and that is 100% ingrained in the actual product Portainer.
Awesome. Now, interesting. You talk about your background in technology, and so I've had people on from, let's see, Italy, England, Romania. Uh, let's see, there's one other, South America. I can't remember. There's one other country I've had someone on. You're my first person from New Zealand. I know
Right.
you're here in the U.S. right now, but I'm interested in your kind of your history into technology, being from New Zealand. How was that? How do you see that being different than the U.S.? Was it kind of the same thing? Was it advantageous? I'm not sure what that climate is over there for technology, but how did you get into technology?
I actually got into it really young, believe it or not. I actually started my first full-time job when I was 17 in IT, fixing computers, and I did that whilst I was studying electronics engineering at night.
Okay.
So I was fixing power supplies and monitors and printers, and then moved up to laptops and PCs. But New Zealand's an interesting place to grow up and be surrounded by technology because we're a relatively small nation. We're miles away from everywhere and anywhere, and you have to make do. And
Hmm.
so what it actually builds is a nation of generalists. So the breadth of my understanding of technology is incredibly wide. Now you could argue that I'm a puddle. I'm very wide and quite shallow. I argue that's not entirely accurate. Um, the definition of a T-shaped engineer, I think, is best described. You're very deep in one area, but know a lot of stuff. New Zealand kind of breeds that culture. There's a lot of generalists, and as a result, when you transition into like an architecture or consulting role, you can toe to toe with most people across a really wide range of topics. You have to understand the actual fiscal dynamics of IT and the impact of IT on the business. You have to understand how to design and build infrastructure systems, the operational
Right.
support and overhead. It makes you very, very diverse. Whereas America is much more specialized. There's many more people, and so you have much more specialized skills.
Yeah, I can actually relate in my being somewhat of a generalist myself. So I grew up not really into technology at all on a farm, so
Right.
no technology, and I just decided to never even owned a computer when I decided to get into technology. I saw it as a path to money, but my first job was for a small printing company, about a $20 million a year printing company, and I ended up running it by myself and ended up having to be kind of a specialist at a lot, but it ended up being more of a generalist at a
Yeah.
lot. So I had to understand at that time, Yahoo was my best friend. So I was definitely like searching, like, how do I do this? How do I do that? Luckily, I never brought anything down for too long. So
Yeah.
I was able to figure it out. But interesting enough for me, like I learned very hands on. So I could read a book, I could take a test, and if I can memorize the questions, I can even pass the test, but I won't retain any information. But I learn very hands on. Do you find yourself similarly, or what's your learning style? Are you hands on or a little bit of both?
I'm definitely hands on. I'm not a theoretical person. I like to just get in and try things. I mean, in my heart, I'm an engineer, right? And engineers are problem solvers. And so
Yeah.
when I see something in front of me as a problem, I break it down into the logical engineering parts, and I try and understand the mechanics of the problem and how I'm going to come up with a solution for it. And I learn a lot through trial and error, understanding just clicking things and seeing what happens, and then you learn, okay, well, if I do that, this happens, and then you build up that memory bank of cause and effect across a range of things, and that's how I learn the most, just through
Yeah.
experimenting. I'm definitely not someone who can read a book and then say, right, I've got it now. I need to actually,
Right.
and like when I first got exposed to Docker and then Kubernetes later on,
Mhm.
it took me weeks. I locked myself in a room for 6 weeks to try and learn the fundamentals of Docker, and reading and experimenting and reading,
Right.
experimenting, reading, experimenting, and then cracked it. And I had to understand the architecture before I even touched anything on the command line. I wanted to understand how the whole thing works. So at a theoretical level, how does it work,
Yeah.
and understand the architecture, and then move forward from there.
Yeah, so let's jump into Portainer IO, or your company Portainer, and talk a little bit about that. So you just mentioned Docker and Kubernetes. It seems like that one of the things you have solved or tried to do is simplifying the management of Docker and Kubernetes. Where did this ideate from? Was it like you co-founded this project? How did this come about, and where did you see the problem that needed to be solved, and what problem did you solve?
Well, containerization is such a game changer, right? There's no one in IT now who could say that the advent of Docker and Kubernetes hasn't changed the world. It's been
Mm.
as influential on IT infrastructure that VMware was back in the day, right? It's a
Yeah.
monumentally better way to package, ship, and run applications, right? Full stop. That's it.
Hmm.
Um, but it's really complicated because there's so many moving parts. I mean, fundamentally, what you're doing is saying here is an API, a common API, and that API will orchestrate and oversee every element of IT, compute and storage and networking and
Right.
health checks and auto recovery and healing. And it's basically an API that would have previously been an entire IT team running around doing things manually. Now you have an API doing it, and because of that, you need to know how to interface with the system to automate a whole bunch of operations. And so
Yeah.
the level of knowledge to enter to use this technology is quite hard, is
Yeah.
quite high, I should say. And so my whole vision for it is, well, that's cool. There's a subset of people in IT out there who have the ability to learn this and become competent at this, but the vast majority of the world has a bunch of people who probably will struggle with that. And so how can we democratize access to this? How can we let any company of any sort of scale and any person in IT interface with a system
Mm.
that can then control the underlying platform and all of its complexity, and do so in a really intuitive way. And that was the goal I set out with Portainer, is to just democratize access, make it significantly easier for people to adopt the technology safely, securely, And we've done that pretty well, I would say, in the 8 years that we've been around.
Yeah. Now you mentioned something there. It's interesting. You mentioned that word securely, right? And I think security is a big, not think, security is a big concern for businesses, for all businesses nowadays. And something that I notice is your business, your company kind of touts creating a secure environment for Kubernetes and a secure environment for Docker. When it comes to security, and I'm really interested in this answer, is security when it comes to those environments? Or are there some things that you guys feel that you do extra or that you do different to ensure that secure environment?
Well, so Kubernetes is this amazingly flexible thing, right? Out of the box, it says, okay, I'm this universal API, and you can talk to me and ask me to do anything, and I will use my operators or use my built-in API knowledge to go and execute basically whatever you ask me to do.
Hmm.
Now, out of the box, it's completely unconfigured. Is that even a word? It's just there waiting for an expert to configure it to suit their use case, right? And
Hmm.
so if you do not know how to go and configure it for your use case, it's unconfigured. It's not secured. So out of the box, Kubernetes is not secured in any way, shape, nor form. Not really. And
Okay.
so you have to possess the knowledge to go in there and secure the environment sufficiently to protect your workloads in your type of network, whether it's exposed to the internet or not. And if you don't know how to do that, you're dead in the water.
Hmm.
And so my whole thing was, well, hang on, flip that around.
Yeah.
When you connect a Kubernetes environment into Portainer for management, we should overlay a bunch of default security standards so that our users are automatically secured. They don't have to possess the knowledge for how to secure everything. We should do that for them. And so we make it really easy to configure centralized user authentication to as many clusters as you need. We make it really simple to configure role-based access control. Role-based access control outside of Portainer is a minefield.
Yeah.
And so we make it really simple. Click this user or this team has this role, done, boom, and it's done. You don't have to be messing about. We make it really easy to define policies, which says, well, what type of applications can run in a cluster? You say, I want to turn on advanced security, and these are my policies, save, done. You don't need to know how to write advanced policies and controls. We've got audit logs and activity logs, all of the stuff that we've taken for granted in
Yeah.
a VMware or virtualization world for 20 years simply now don't exist in this new world unless you configure it. So
Right.
that's it.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, anytime you can simplify security in any environment for anyone, it does make it easier. But it also does call, as you discussed earlier, for this defense in depth approach, which they always talk about in security, and it's customized to your environment. There was a day I remember back when security was a cookie cutter kind of approach. You would have your virus protection, your web filtering, and your firewall, and that pretty much, like for the most part, protected your environment. That's not the case now. It really is an not interesting, but it's a pretty complex approach to be able to secure these environments. So now, of course, I wanted to ask about AI and Kubernetes and how it plays into AI. Now, to me, it seems like Kubernetes creates with the container environment, what you're talking about with the APIs, it would create a pretty, I would say, warm environment or friendly environment for AI implementation. Is that
Mhm.
accurate? And maybe you can expand on that and how it's being used.
Yeah, I mean, at its heart, Kubernetes is an automation engine, right? That's it. Now,
Yeah.
there's fancy terms, orchestrator, but at its heart, it's an automation engine, and you ask it to do something, and it knows how to go and do that, and it'll go and perform all those actions for
Hmm.
you. One of the workloads that you need to run is AI workloads,
Mm.
either large language models or AI video ingest and determination, whatever it is you're doing and what kind of AI workload. These need to run, and they may run for a short time, they may run for a long time, but you need to be able to spin them up. They need to be given access to hardware, GPUs, and then they need to be torn down again when you're finished doing whatever you're doing. And Kubernetes lets you do that in seconds. You basically say, here is my container. My container runs an application that needs access to the GPU. Go, and Kubernetes will do it for you. So it makes it really quite simple to spin up an infrastructure platform that can dynamically provision AI workloads on GPUs and tear them down again. And
Yeah.
to do that without Kubernetes, you're talking about lots of manually created automation scripts.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the whole idea, I think the whole main use case for AI right now is automation and efficiency and, making things easier. And then you add Kubernetes on top of that, and it just enhances that efficiency, enhances the ease and automation and ease of use. So interesting. Another question I had. So a lot of technologies there's an evolution with every technology. It doesn't matter what it is. And
Hmm.
some technologies are at the end of that evolution. Some technologies are completely done with the evolution and been retired. Where do you think Kubernetes stands in container management? Do you think there's still more room for growth? There's still more room for innovation? Has it arrived? Like, where do you feel this technology is in its evolutionary stage?
I would say it's midlife now. It's
Hmm.
definitely like if you think back 2 3 years ago, the Kubernetes API was evolving. There were breaking changes all the time. Things were being deprecated, new features being added, and it was being added at such a pace. Anyone who was building on top of Kubernetes was running on a treadmill, just to keep up with the pace of change of Kubernetes itself. Now that's slowed
Yeah.
down a little bit now because now there's much more focus on stability and other things, and also we've moved away from people adopting Kubernetes being the tech expert type organizations. There's two types of organizations, right? There's those that see IT as a center of innovation, and there are those that see IT as a cost center. Now, yeah, if you look back the last 10 years
Mm.
of Kubernetes history, and
Yeah.
honestly, it's really the last sort of 5 years where it became more mainstream. It was the companies adopting Kubernetes that saw IT as a center of innovation. Well,
Mm.
now that's flipped. End of last year, I think was a pivot point, and now you're seeing people where IT is a cost center, saying, well, actually, Kubernetes is simply a more efficient and effective way of delivering IT. It's a lower cost way of delivering IT. This is why we're migrating to it, as opposed to
Yeah.
I can deliver a really cool new digital service. It's now this is a better way of delivering, a cheaper way of delivering IT.
Yeah.
Once you've crossed over that point, I think you're into the midlife of the tech.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny when I became an IT director, I was 21 years old, and the CFO sat me down and he gave me this book, and one of the chapters was called Computers. That's how back in early
Yeah,
2000s, called Computers, and it was exactly his point is it's just a cost center. Like all you are is a cost center, and it wasn't like he wasn't being mean, but it wasn't an overly friendly conversation. He was letting me know that all these computers and all this technology is just costing the company money. But the challenge is to turn it into, you could say, innovation or more of a profit center. And I felt like, I mean, that was young in my career, and I felt like that did drive me to try to be innovative, even at that time in manufacturing, and develop some applications and programs for automation and tracking as a printing company. But to try to get out of that, I don't know if I don't feel like I ever got out of the cost center like stage of that. But I did develop some programs that helped make cells, at least, right? That were value adds other than the competitors. But it is an interesting concept when you get into technology, that cost center, profit center, and how technology is viewed. I think AI is interesting right now because it's not just a cost center. There's almost this rush to adopt AI, and you see all this whiz bang and all this hype around AI just for the sake of AI, almost like the cloud, right? Like, what are we
yeah,
doing in the cloud? And it doesn't. I don't know. It's like people are adopting because of the shiny toy, not because of real business use cases in a lot of times. And I think there's a very high failure rate in AI adoption as well, probably because of that, because of this rush. Are you seeing anything similar with AI? I mean, what do you think about all the hype with it and AI has been around for a while. I know that. So when I say AI, I'm talking about AI of how we're talking about it
yeah,
now.
yeah. I AI is definitely the next gold rush, right? It
Yeah.
definitely is. There are people jumping on it because they see it as a way to reduce the human cost of delivering services in their business. They're looking at chatbots predominantly and saying, okay, look, I can remove my entire help desk or my entire customer service team and replace it with a chatbot. And we're seeing a lot of negative press around that where the chatbot hallucinates, tells a customer something that's completely wrong,
Yeah.
and next thing you know, there's lawsuits because hang on a second, the chatbot told me A, but the answer actually is
Yep.
B. So we're seeing a lot of failed projects in that regards because people have slightly too much confidence in the technology, and the technology is not human yet. It's miles away from that. It's good,
Yeah.
it's not human. Even I use it myself against our own product, and the things it tells me that my product can do that it simply can't is phenomenal. It's like, where is it getting this from? It's
Right.
like nowhere anywhere on the internet is people talking about Portainer and that piece of capability. So
Right.
it's simply made it up itself. It's like, that's insane. So you definitely can't believe it all. Where we are seeing a lot of uptake is actually retail AI,
Yeah.
where it is actually looking at video feeds and making real time decisions based on video feeds. Like the self service checkout kiosks. I was at a hypermart here in the US just recently, and you
Hmm.
simply it was a Circle K actually, and you just put things on the counter, and next thing it says swipe your card. That's it. You do nothing. You simply
Yes.
put them on the counter,
Yeah.
swipe your card, and walk away. It's like, and that's all. So that's a really cool use case, and that was incredibly accurate. And no one was going to the actual cashier. Everyone was using the terminal.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so much easier. When I go to I have season tickets for the Knights, which is our hockey team here in Las Vegas, and they have a little area kind of like that, but it's not one of the lines you have to stand in. You just swipe your card before you go in, then you go in and you can grab, it's not, you don't have as much of a selection, but you can grab drinks, you can grab some snacks and things like that. And you just go in and grab them, take them off the shelf and walk out. And then it just knows, right? Like, and that's that, having that, I think the computer vision, right? And it's amazing. But that is an absolute, yeah, absolute good use case for it. It is interesting that, there is I feel like a little bit of need for guardrails in a way for AI development, because you're seeing a lot of malicious like AI development.
Hmm.
But then I go back and I say, okay, well, look at technology over time. Doesn't matter almost what technology, every technology I've seen created has been used for good and for, if you want to call it evil or bad purposes. So, yeah, what's your thoughts on AI governance, AI guardrails? Are you seeing us moving too fast, too slow? Just want to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, definitely the large language model, the way that it can write content it's very human, and so you have no idea whether what you're reading has been written by a human or a machine, right? And
Yeah.
so that this whole fake news, when someone publishes a story, if it sounds believable, more often than not, people will believe it.
Yeah.
That's just human nature. It's even worse when you see it, and the amount
Yeah.
of deep fake AI videos now are so scary, where it's actually copied the person's voice. um,
Yep.
there's actually a YouTube influencer, Jeff Geerling, I think it is, and a company copied his voice to create their own videos, and it's like, that's scary. It sounds like him.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of things. If you read it and it sounds correct, sounds like a human wrote it, you believe it.
Mhm.
If you hear it, it's even more believable. If you can see it and hear it, you don't really second guess what you're seeing. It's factual, and that's the most dangerous part is
Yeah.
is fake news.
It is. It'll be interesting how I mean, it's a big topic here in the U.S., right? The freedom of speech and,
Hmm.
like being honest, not being honest. And then you take this with AI and it's kind of the same thing. And I don't know if eventually we're going to have to come to the point where we have to label every video like this is commentary, this is satire, and we have to rate our video. And there are some scary use cases of when AI does get accurate of creating maybe scenes, especially from a provocative standpoint for wars or things like that, to create events that didn't happen to make it look like, I mean, you can go down the rabbit hole, right? War crimes, like whatever it is, and create these videos that are going to be more authentic. I was seeing a video yesterday of it was just a birthday party, right? It was all AI generated. And I actually, and a lot of times you can see, I could not see the difference between the human AI and everything else. The video was just spot on. So I don't know if labeling's the answer. I don't know how
Digital fingerprints. Like, if you
it's
look at the
interesting.
way that the diamond industry has responded,
Mm,
mined diamonds, natural diamonds versus man-made diamonds, and man-made diamonds have a microscopic, fingerprint on it, like a serial number, and so the human eye can't see it. You can only see it under a micron microscope.
yeah.
but every single man-made diamond legally has to have this little fingerprint on it so that you know the difference, because otherwise chemically they're the same, visually they're the same. So,
Yeah.
but they're not the same. So this might be one way, is forcing all AI technology to always have a traceable fingerprint embedded in it, so you can tell it's real or not.
Yeah, I don't think that's a horrible thing. I mean, even with when you look at technology, if you even look at memes right now and things like that that can be put out, people faking someone's Twitter account
Hmm.
and putting out like, "Hey, so and so said this." If you had that fingerprint, then you could see like, "Hey, that doesn't carry that fingerprint." But then you also have to be an expert at identifying a fingerprint and what that actually looks like, or I guess software will. It's an interesting conundrum, I guess, to discuss. So another question I always ask this. It's kind of a I think it's an interesting thought. So you have the Elon Musk has the Neuralink, chip, and right now it's doing really great things, right? Like I think it's really cool, like how it's helping whether it's paraplegics, people who might not be able to see, move their body correctly, and do things that they haven't ever been able to do. I think that's a very noble and cool use case. But then there's the talk of okay, well, implanting a chip into our brain that also makes us smarter, more intelligent. I compare it to athletes taking steroids, right? Like some people it's worth the risk. If there was no risk, let's say there was no risk, it was all like good, and you could put a chip in your brain, you could speak every language and have a hyper intelligence, which I guess if everyone was doing it, then you wouldn't have hyper intelligence. Sorry, my ADD is kicking in. But so anyhow, what would that be something you would do?
Hey,
Would you be interested in that?
I'd be at the front of the queue, 100%.
Yeah,
Like as I learned a second language, and that country opened up to me, and you can now go into the rural sectors and engage with people, and you're able
yeah,
to get off the tourist path because you can go and engage with the local culture and their local language. It just opens the world up. And if I could do that,
changes.
yeah, 20, 30 times over, yeah, as I travel now for business around the world and to all different cultures and different languages, I'm very constrained. It would be
Yeah.
amazing to be able to just speak any language and be able to have access to a wealth of knowledge. 100%, man. That'll make us a significantly smarter race
Yeah.
overnight.
Yeah. I mean, and that's with the guideline that, or the rule that it's completely safe because, then I go down there like, okay, what if someone now I have technology in my brain. Now someone could hack my brain. I start thinking about all the things, but if it were completely safe and all those problems were solved, I'd have a hard time. Um, I'd have a hard time not doing it as well. I think, especially whenever ever I've been asked what superpower would you want, language has always fascinated me,
Hmm.
and that would be one of them. And that's an interesting point too about culturally how it is different when you travel and speak the language compared to when you don't, and you are much more ingrained into the culture and the people and even accepted in a weird way where you kind of get a little bit of a different treatment. I know going down to Costa Rica, God, what was that about 3 weeks ago? My wife's from Mexico, so she speaks Spanish.
Hmm.
I wouldn't say fluent, but I'm about 70% there. But the friends who didn't speak Spanish, we were talking, they got a different experience. And
Yeah.
even from guides and everything, we got a couple things and little inside tips that they wouldn't have got that we shared with the group, of course. But yeah, I like that. I like that cultural take with it. So where do you see, and I just kind of sticking with AI a little bit more. What are you actually? No, I actually wanted to ask a different question than that because I was wondering about.
So I can't wait to the day that we can actually have a proper babel fish in my ear. That would be even if it's not Neuralink. If I can get the babel fish, babel fish, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, if I can get one of those in my ear where I can hear any language and I can speak any language, oh my goodness, give me
E-
that first. I don't want a Neuralink, I want a babel fish.
yeah. Even from a translation standpoint, right?
Yeah,
Just even to translate it, even if
yeah.
it doesn't help me speak, but to translate the language would be amazing. So you've been in technology. The question I actually wanted to ask is, you've been in technology for a while. And right now you're focused on Kubernetes, but like you said, you're an engineer, you're a problem solver at heart. What's another technology that stands out that you've worked with that you thought was really cool or really fun to work with that you also had a passion for diving into?
Wow, man, that's looking backwards. The whole virtualization trend, that was something that
Hmm.
really excited me back in the day. I thought that was really interesting. Right now, the thing that's really excited me is actually IoT and edge. Um, we're doing a lot of work in the industrial IoT space and looking at the automations that can be implemented in factories to improve quality, improve efficiency, and overall generate a better product at a lower cost is absolutely phenomenal. And when you think about the world now as a global e-commerce layer, right?
Mm,
Look,
yeah,
lowest cost, highest quality is going to win always. Who can do that the best? Who's going to invest in technology and manufacturing the fastest to deliver a better, cheaper product? They will win hands down. Did we think that BYD, the car manufacturer, would all of a sudden be one of the largest providers of vehicles? A year ago, 2 years ago, would we have thought that? Absolutely not.
right.
But these guys are doubling down on automation, and obviously Tesla as well. But you look at these guys, they're just making a mockery of the legacy manufacturers who are much slower to adopt technology. That's going to roll out across the board in all manufacturing everywhere, and you'll get better products. There's a
Yeah,
people element to that because now you can do much more with fewer people. So there's a people element there. And you can see the worker strikes down at the ports in America,
yeah,
right? Same thing. That's the fear of automation versus people. So
yeah,
there's that element to go through. But that is super exciting. The industrial IoT or Industry 4 transformation.
yeah. It really is. It's interesting because I read that the same thing on the. I was thinking about the same thing with the port strike and how automation was one of the things they were wanting to keep out and prevent. And you just can't prevent technology like
You
that.
can't.
But I think it does show a huge need for this cultural, organizational look at the human aspect of technology, and also helping companies understand not how to replace humanity, but how to enhance. I've heard reimagine. I think that's a fun marketing word, reimagine your job. But how do you take your human workers who are good workers and repurpose them for something better, something more human, like something that can still drive, whether it's innovation, whether it can drive ROI, hit your KPIs better, whatever it is that companies are looking at nowadays. I think there has to be a lot of education around that because and maybe rightfully so, but there's a lot of fear around this automation. As you can see as you
Mhm.
pointed out with the port strikes, like that was, it's a huge fear of theirs. But I don't think technology has to replace humans in every instance. I know there's some where naturally it just will, but don't you see there's kind of a room for both, like this intersection of humanity and technology? I don't want to say AI, but technology and advanced compute.
Yeah, of course. And looking at it as it's going to replace me is actually a flawed assumption, right?
Yeah.
What it actually does, it allows the company, the port operator in this example, to increase throughput. So
Yep.
yeah, if they can handle X numbers of, geez, I don't want to use the word containers because we're just talking about Docker and
Right.
containers, but if you can handle a certain number of port operations a day
Yeah.
with your human headcount, and now with automation and the same headcount, you can now handle twice as many port operations. That's just made the entire supply chain significantly more effective. That's
Yep.
a win. You don't need to look at this, and I don't think any company in their right mind will be saying, "How can I deliver the same number of port operations with half the people?" That's crazy. They're
Yep.
looking to say, "How can I double my revenue by getting significantly more throughput while my costs stay the same?" So
Right.
automation's not a threat to the employees. It's a massive benefit because it makes the company that's employing them significantly more profitable and stronger. They can they can get more throughput. And in
Yeah.
any industry this applies.
Absolutely. And I think about, like doctors who have, and I think overall about mundane kind of tasks that AI can replace. And there's this huge portion of not just, replacing, but also when I talk about enhancing the worker, enhancing what they can do, but almost this mental health aspect. I guess that's what I'm getting at. As far as some companies are squeezing every single bit they can out of an employee, and a lot of that is because of these mundane tasks that employees are having to do that could be replaced by AI. So if you can free up time and free up that pressure off your employee and give them a better work experience, a better, if you call it work life, better yeah, just overall work experience, then I think that there's something to be said there. It's not always about, again, the replacement, but sometimes, and it does, studies do show that, happy employees who are where companies are focused on mental health, they actually do perform better. And I think there's a big use case for just relieving some of this pressure off of employees. Again, not replacing them, but getting rid of these mundane tasks that they're having to do for that better employee experience.
Yeah, I mean, medical professionals especially, right? So, like,
Yeah.
when I was back in New Zealand a few months ago, I tried to get a doctor's appointment just to do my regular wellman checks, and there was a three to 4 week wait time to see the doctor. Now, if I was sick in 3 to 4 weeks' time, I'm probably already better. At that point, I don't need to see the doctor anymore.
Right.
And it was like, wow, that's a huge queue. And the reason being is from first thing in the morning until last thing at night, the doctors are all busy seeing patients all the time. Now, again, if AI can augment that doctor's time so they can see twice the number of patients within that time frame, that's awesome. That works a lot better. I also went to go back to my doctor, and the doctor had left the trade because he'd been burnt out. He
Yeah.
was just seeing so many patients day in day out, and he just got burnt out. He didn't have any weekends off, and it was done. Um, the problem is, ChatGPT, just to use the brand everyone knows, it's not a doctor. Rubbish in,
Right.
rubbish out. If you tell it, I've got this and this and this symptom, and it says, okay, you've got cancer, you're going to die. Of course you haven't. I mean, geez, you might, but yeah, of course you
Right.
haven't. What you've got is a headache.
Yeah.
And so it's still very much the inputs directly correlate to the quality of the output.
Yeah.
And so having a trained professional, a doctor, being able to control the inputs, it gives them a much more accurate output. So again, think of it as augmentation for efficiency gains as opposed
Yeah.
to replacement. None of this stuff is replacement.
Yeah, and there's still a little bit of fear with that. You talk about those hallucinations and everything, because I think there is a huge use case for doctors. Right now, they have scribes who will actually like scribe. They've got the Dragon technology for doctors to speak into,
Hmm.
and have a, translate, or not translate, but again transcribe. But yeah, there is a big use case for that. However, I can imagine a scenario where the doctor transcribes and the AI organizes it, but then it hallucinates during that organization, and you just can't have that. So I think that we'll get better. I think as RAG models, that's one of the things that as those start increasing and start getting more accurate and better, we're going to have fewer hallucinations. So it'll be interesting. There's a lot of use case, and this is where I say there's definitely a maturation that has to happen in the AI market right now, and it is a maturing market. We're not even where you talk about Kubernetes being kind of in the middle. AI is not even a quarter way there, right?
Yeah.
It's still very very early, so there's still a huge maturation that needs to happen. So, wrapping up here, of course, like I told you when we talked before, I'm going to give you last thoughts. So whatever's on your mind, whatever you want to close with, any last thoughts, and we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, I always like to say, don't be scared about technology. Technology is there to make our lives better. If you think about Kubernetes, it's there to make the management of infrastructure better. It gives us a common API set across any cloud provider, on-prem, on your laptop. It gives you consistency. If you think about AI, it's there to make the human operator of the AI model smarter. And you can answer questions or get answers to questions that you may otherwise be unable to. So don't be scared of technology. Embrace it, but embrace it safely. Understand what it can do, its limitations, and don't just dive in head first. But definitely don't be scared of technology.
Awesome, Neil. It's been really a pleasure. It's been fun talking to you, and your insights have been just amazing. So thanks again for taking time out of your day and just spending it with me. I
Thanks for
appreciate it.
having me. Appreciate it.